Enzo Ferrari was born on the 18th of February 1898 in Modena, Italy. Enzo grew up with little formal education. At the age of 10 he witnessed Felice Nazzaro's win at the 1908 Circuito di Bologna, an event that instilled in him a strong desire to become a race driver. However, the First World War began when Enzo Ferrari was 16, which led him to serve in the 3rd Alpine Artillery Division of the Italian Army. In his early years, Ferrari suffered a lot of throwbacks, such as the death of his father and brother due to a widespread Italian flu outbreak and the realization that the family firm had collapsed when he returned after the end of the war. Being young and ambitious, Ferrari applied for a job at the Italian car manufacturer Fiat, but suffered another setback after being rejected. Ferrari's unsuccessful attempts to start working for Fiat lead him to the CMN, a car manufacturer in Milan, that were redesigning truck bodies into passenger cars. He was later promoted to race car driver. Ferrari's success story began when he left the CMN racing team, to start racing for the Alfa Romeo racing team. Ferrari won his first Grand Prix in 1923. Deeply shocked by the death of his friend, Antonio Ascari in 1925, Ferrari, by his own admissions, continued to race half-heartedly. Following the birth of his son Alfredo, Dino, in 1932, Ferrari decided to retire and to focus instead on the management and development of the factory Alfa race cars, eventually building up a race team of superstar drivers. This team was called Scuderia Ferrari, Alfa's racing team. In this period the prancing horse emblem began to show up on his team's cars. The emblem had been created and sported by Italian fighter plane pilot Francesco Baracca. During World War I, Baracca gave Ferrari a necklace with the prancing horse on it prior to takeoff. Baracca was shot down and killed by an Austrian aeroplane in 1918. In memory of his death, Ferrari used the prancing horse to create the emblem that would become the world-famous Ferrari shield. Initially displayed on Alfa Romeos, the shield was first seen on a Ferrari in 1947. Alfa Romeo withdrew their engagement in 1933, when financial constraints arose, which led Ferrari to leave Alfa in 1937, after being demoted to Director of Sports. Enzo Ferrari then founded a company, Auto Avio Costruzioni, although a contract clause with Alfa Romeo restricted him from racing or designing cars for 4 years. When the Second World War began, where his company became involved in the war production for Mussolini's fascist government. Following a live bombing of the factory, Ferrari relocated from Modena to Maranello. At the end of the war, Ferrari decided to start making cars bearing his name, and founded Ferrari Spa in 1947. Enzo Ferrari started to participate in the Formula One World Championship with his racing team and produced sport cars as a secondary business in order to finance his racing endeavors. The very first road car that was manufactured by Ferrari was the 125 Sport, which was powered by a 1.5 liters V12 engine that helped the company to gain a reputation for excellence and luxurious cars. Enzo Ferrari's leadership style and his strong personality allowed him to strengthen his racing team and his company. Enzo decided to battle the dominating Alfa Romeos and race with his own team. The team's open-wheel debut took place in Turin in 1948 and the first win came later in the year in Lago di Garda. The first major victory came at the 1949 24 Hours of Le Mans. Many of Ferrari's greatest victories came at Le Mans, 9 victories, including 6 in a row in 1960 to 1965, and in Formula One during the 1950s and 1960s. Ferrari's heavy-hand leadership style was exposed publicly when he dismissed some of Ferrari's important employees, such as his sales manager Girolamo Gardini, the manager of Scuderia Ferrari race team, the chief engineer and the sports car development chief amongst many others. The reason for this round of dismissals was internal tensions between Girolamo Gardini and Enzo's wife Laura, who was also involved in the company. Ferrari had created his own rival as they formed a new company after leaving Ferrari. Many thought that Ferrari Spa wouldn't be able to cope the immense loss. However, Enzo Ferrari started to develop the 250 GTO, which became one of the most famous sports cars in history and won several championships. With the help of Ferrari's young engineer Fighieri and his racing body man Scoglietti, many cars like the Daytona 275 and the 250p were on the way. It was in 1969 when increasing financial difficulties as well as the problem of racing in many categories and having to meet new safety and clean air emissions requirement for road car production and development caused Ferrari to start looking for a business partner. Fiat started its engagement with a 50% stake investment in Ferrari with the caveat that he would remain 100% in control of the racing activities and that Fiat would pay sizable subsidy till his death for use of his Maranello and Modena production plants. Enzo Ferrari retired in 1973 from his sports car racing team and died in 1988. He witnessed the launch of the Ferrari F40, one of the greatest road cars at that time, shortly before his death, which was dedicated as a symbol of his achievements. In 2002 the first car to be named after him was launched as the Enzo Ferrari.